Welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into the mysterious and spine-chilling story of Dr. Evelyn Cross and the cursed Shadowmere Manor. The low hum of the airport terminal faded into the background as Dr. Evelyn Cross stared down at the thick envelope clutched in her hands. The return address, printed in elegant cursive, sent a shiver down her spine. Shadowmere Manor. Evelyn had hoped never to hear that name again, but now, it demanded her attention. She smoothed her fingers over the wax seal, its intricate design hinting at the manor's dark history. With a deep breath, she slid her finger beneath the flap and tore it open. The contents were sparse, a single letter and a one-way plane ticket. Evelyn's eyes scanned the elegant script, her pulse quickening with each passing word. "Dear Dr. Cross," the letter began. "I find myself in a most desperate situation, one that I fear only you and your unique expertise can remedy. Shadowmere Manor, the cursed estate that has haunted my family for generations, has awakened once more. Strange occurrences, unexplainable phenomena, they have returned to plague these halls, and I fear the consequences if left unchecked. I know I have no right to ask this of you, given our history, but I am at my wit's end. The manor's dark legacy has resurfaced, and I cannot face it alone. I implore you, Dr. Cross, to put aside our differences and come to Shadowmere. Time is of the essence, for the evil that dwells here grows stronger with each passing day." Evelyn's grip tightened on the letter, the paper crinkling under the pressure. Victor Blackwood, the reclusive billionaire and owner of Shadowmere Manor, was reaching out to her, the very man she had sworn to never work with again. But the gravity of his plea was undeniable. Something had awakened within the manor's walls, something powerful and malevolent. She glanced up, her gaze sweeping over the bustling airport. This was her chance to confront the demons of her past, to uncover the truth that had eluded her for so long. With a resolute nod, Evelyn slipped the letter back into the envelope and tucked it into her bag. She would need to assemble her team, the best and brightest in the field of paranormal investigation. This was no ordinary haunting, it was a call to arms. As Evelyn made her way to the gate, her mind raced with memories of Shadowmere Manor. She had been there once before, a lifetime ago, when the manor's dark history had nearly consumed her. The experience had left scars, both physical and psychological, and she had vowed to never return. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The plane ride was a blur, Evelyn's thoughts consumed by the impending confrontation. She knew she would need to confront her own demons, the trauma that still haunted her, if she had any hope of unraveling the mystery of Shadowmere Manor. This was no easy task, but the weight of responsibility rested squarely on her shoulders. Upon arrival, Evelyn wasted no time in contacting her team. She summoned Sam Chin, the brilliant young technician whose analytical mind had saved them countless times. Lydia Raven, the sensitive medium whose connection to the spirit world was both a blessing and a curse, was the next to join. Finally, Evelyn reached out to Mark Winters, the cynical journalist whose skepticism would undoubtedly serve as a counterbalance to the team's supernatural expertise. As the team gathered at the manor's gates, Evelyn could sense the apprehension in their eyes. They had all heard the stories, the whispers of Shadowmere's dark legacy. But it was the look of concern on their faces that struck Evelyn the most. They knew this was no ordinary investigation, and they were bracing themselves for the unknown. "Thank you all for coming," Evelyn said, her voice measured and calm. "I know this is not an easy request, but the situation at Shadowmere Manor is dire. We must uncover the truth behind the disturbances and put an end to the entity that haunts these halls." Sam, ever the voice of reason, stepped forward. "What exactly are we dealing with, Evelyn? You've been evasive about the details, and I can't help but feel there's something you're not telling us." Evelyn's gaze locked with Sam's, her expression grave. "The truth is, I have history with this place, history that I've tried to bury for years. But now, it seems, the past has come back to haunt us all. Shadowmere Manor is not your typical haunting. There is an ancient, malevolent force at work here, one that has been unleashed once more." Lydia shuddered, her eyes distant. "I can feel it," she whispered, her voice tinged with fear. The darkness, the power. It's unlike anything I've ever encountered before. Mark stepped forward, his brow furrowed in skepticism. Come on, Evelyn. Surely you don't expect us to believe in some supernatural boogeyman. There has to be a rational explanation for all of this. Evelyn turned to face him, her gaze unwavering. I wish that were the case, Mark. But I can assure you, what we're about to face is very real and very dangerous. This is no ordinary haunting. The entity that dwells within Shadowmere Manor is ancient, powerful, and utterly merciless. The team fell silent, the weight of Evelyn's words settling over them like a heavy shroud. She could see the uncertainty in their eyes, the flicker of fear that threatened to take hold. But she also saw the determination, the steadfast resolve that had drawn them together time and time again. I won't lie to you, Evelyn continued. This mission will be unlike anything we've faced before. The Manor's dark history runs deeper than any of us could imagine, and the entity that has awakened there is unlike anything we've encountered. But I know we can stop it, if we work together. Evelyn paused, letting her gaze sweep across the faces of her team. Are you with me? Sam was the first to nod, her expression resolute. Of course. We're in this together, Evelyn. Whatever we're up against, we'll face it head on. Lydia followed, her eyes shining with a mixture of trepidation and purpose. I'm with you. I can't ignore the darkness that calls to me. It's time to confront it, once and for all. Mark, after a long moment of contemplation, sighed and shook his head. Well, someone has to keep you all from getting yourselves killed. I'm in. As the team stepped through the wrought iron gates of Shadowmere Manor, Evelyn felt a familiar chill run down her spine. The manor loomed before them, its towering spires and weathered facade exuding an aura of malevolence. This was where her past and present collided, where the battle against an ancient evil was about to begin. Evelyn took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenges that lay ahead. Welcome to Shadowmere, she said, her voice laced with both trepidation and resolve. Let's get to work. The long, winding road that led to Shadowmere Manor seemed to stretch on endlessly, the dense foliage closing in around the team's SUV as they approached their destination. Evelyn gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white, a foreboding feeling settling in the pit of her stomach. Something about this place unsettled her, dredging up memories she had long buried. As the imposing silhouette of the manor came into view, Evelyn felt a shiver run down her spine. The building looked as if it had been plucked straight from the pages of a Gothic novel, its stark, angular architecture and weathered stone facade exuding an aura of age and darkness. Well, this looks like a lovely place, Mark muttered from the back seat, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Are you sure we can't just turn around and pretend we never got this invitation? Evelyn glanced at him through the rearview mirror. You're free to wait in the car if you'd like, Mark. But I have a feeling you won't want to miss this. Sam, seated next to Mark, leaned forward. I have to admit, this place gives me the creeps. Are you sure we're ready for this, Evelyn? Lydia, who had been quietly gazing out the window, turned to face the others. We have to be. Something powerful is at work here, something ancient and malevolent. I can feel it, like a weight pressing down on my mind. Evelyn nodded, her expression grim. Then we'd best be on our guard. Victor Blackwood is expecting us. As they pulled up to the ornate wrought iron gates, a figure emerged from the shadows, Victor Blackwood himself. The reclusive billionaire looked haggard, his once pristine appearance disheveled and his eyes sunken with exhaustion. Thank you all for coming, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm not sure what to expect, but I'm grateful you're here. Evelyn studied him for a moment, sensing the underlying fear in his demeanor. What exactly is going on, Mr. Blackwood? Your letter was rather vague. Blackwood hesitated, glancing nervously over his shoulder. Perhaps we should continue this conversation inside. The walls have eyes here, and I fear they're watching. The team exchanged uneasy looks, but followed Blackwood through the gates and up the winding driveway to the manor's grand entrance. As they approached the massive oak doors, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that they were being observed, the hairs on the back of her neck standing on end. Once inside, The oppressive atmosphere only intensified. The foyer was dimly lit, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors and intricate, Gothic-inspired decor. Evelyn couldn't help but notice the numerous occult symbols and arcane artwork adorning the walls, remnants of the manor's dark history. Blackwood led them through the twisting corridors, the sound of their footsteps echoing ominously. Lydia suddenly stopped, her face pale. I feel it," she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "There's something here, something ancient and powerful. It's watching us." Sam placed a reassuring hand on Lydia's arm. "It's okay, Lydia. We're all here together. Just try to stay calm." Blackwood paused, turning to face the group. "I'm afraid Lydia is right. The entity that haunts this place is very much awake and aware of your presence. It has been waiting for you." Mark scoffed. "Entity? You mean ghosts? Come on, Blackwood, you can't seriously expect us to believe." Before he could finish, a loud thud echoed through the hallway, causing everyone to jump. A decorative vase that had been sitting on a side table suddenly toppled to the floor, shattering into pieces. Sam's eyes widened. "What the?" Blackwood's expression grew even more anxious. "That is merely a glimpse of what we're up against. Things have been growing worse. Objects moving on their own, strange noises in the night, and visions." Lydia shuddered. "Visions? What kind of visions?" "Terrible ones," Blackwood replied, his voice barely audible. "Visions of rituals, of sacrifice. I've seen them, felt them, as if I were there, trapped in the past." Evelyn studied Blackwood, her mind racing. "You seem to know more about this entity than you're letting on, Mr. Blackwood. I think it's time you told us the full story." Blackwood hesitated, then nodded solemnly. "Very well. Follow me to the library. I have much to explain." As the team followed Blackwood, Evelyn couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. The manor seemed to whisper to her, the shadows dancing and shifting as if alive. She knew that whatever they were about to uncover, it would be far more than just a simple haunting. In the dimly lit library, Blackwood settled into a worn leather armchair, his fingers trembling slightly as he began to speak. "The Blackwood family has a long and complicated history with this place. Generations ago, my ancestors made a pact with an ancient, malevolent force, one that has haunted Shadowmere Manor ever since." Sam frowned. "A pact? What kind of pact?" Blackwood closed his eyes, a look of anguish passing over his features. "A pact for power, for wealth, for the ability to control the darkness that lurks in the world. But the entity they summoned was far more powerful than they could have imagined. It has remained trapped here, feeding off the energy of the living, steadily growing stronger with each passing year." Lydia shuddered. "And now it's awakening." Blackwood nodded grimly. "Yes. I can feel it, coiling, waiting to break free. That's why I called you all here. I need your help to stop it, before it consumes us all." Evelyn's mind raced, the pieces of the puzzle slowly falling into place. "So you're the last descendant of the Blackwood family. And this entity, it's been using you as a conduit, hasn't it?" Blackwood met her gaze, his eyes filled with a mixture of shame and terror. "Yes. I've tried to resist, to break the hold it has over me, but its power grows stronger with each passing day. I fear that soon, I will no longer be able to control it." The team fell silent, the weight of Blackwood's revelation settling heavily upon them. Evelyn knew that they were facing something far beyond a simple haunting. This was an ancient, malevolent force, one that had been steadily gathering strength for centuries. And now, it was on the verge of breaking free, threatening to consume them all. As Evelyn looked around at her team, she saw the same mixture of determination and trepidation reflected in their eyes. They had come here to confront the unknown, to uncover the truth. But now, they realized the true depth of the darkness they were about to face. Evelyn flipped through the tattered pages, her brow furrowed in concentration. The documents she had uncovered in the manor's library painted a disturbing picture of the Blackwood family's dark history. "This goes back generations," she murmured, her fingers tracing the faded ink. A pact with an ancient entity, promising power and wealth in exchange for sacrifices. The rest of the team gathered around, their faces etched with a mixture of fascination and dread. Sam leaned in, studying the intricate symbols that adorned the pages. "What kind of entity are we dealing with here?" she asked, her tone laced with trepidation. Evelyn shook her head grimly. "Something powerful, something that has been feeding off the Blackwood family for centuries. A malevolent force seeking to cross over into our world." Lydia shuddered, her eyes unfocused as she seemed to gaze into another realm. "I can feel its presence, growing stronger. It's ancient, and it's hungry." Mark scoffed, folding his arms across his chest. "You can't seriously expect us to believe all this supernatural mumbo-jumbo. There has to be a rational explanation." Victor Blackwood, who had been silent up until this point, finally spoke up, his voice heavy with resignation. "I'm afraid there isn't. This entity, this darkness, it's real. And it's come for me." The team turned to face the reclusive billionaire, their expressions a mix of confusion and concern. Blackwood ran a trembling hand through his graying hair, the weight of his family's legacy etched into the lines of his face. "My ancestors made a deal with this thing centuries ago. In exchange for power and wealth, they agreed to offer sacrifices, human sacrifices, to keep it at bay." He paused, his gaze downcast. "I'm the last of the Blackwood line. And now it wants me." Evelyn felt a chill run down her spine as the implications of Blackwood's words sank in. "So this entity, it's been using your family as a conduit to maintain its influence in the physical world?" Blackwood nodded solemnly. "Yes. And now that I'm the last one, it's growing stronger, threatening to break free of the bindings my ancestors placed upon it." The team exchanged troubled glances, the oppressive weight of the manor's dark history bearing down on them. Lydia's fingers tightened around the rosary beads she had been clutching, her knuckles turning white. "We have to stop it," she said with conviction, "before it consumes us all." Evelyn took a deep breath, her mind racing as she considered their options. "All right then. We need to find a way to banish this entity, once and for all. But first, we need to understand the full extent of its power." As if on cue, the manor began to tremble, the very foundations shifting beneath their feet. Paintings on the walls suddenly swung wildly, and the air grew thick with an otherworldly energy. Lydia let out a strangled gasp, her eyes wide with terror. "It's here. It knows we're close to the truth." The team braced themselves as the manor groaned and creaked, the very fabric of reality seeming to warp and distort. Doors slammed shut on their own, and the shadows in the corners of the room seemed to writhe and twist. Sam's equipment, which had been functioning perfectly moments ago, began to malfunction, the screens flashing and the instruments emitting strange, garbled signals. "What the hell is happening?" Mark shouted, his voice barely audible over the din. Evelyn steeled her nerves, her mind racing to process the onslaught of supernatural phenomena. "It's testing us, pushing the boundaries of what we can perceive. We need to stay focused, and find a way to counteract its influence." Victor Blackwood's face had gone ashen, his eyes wide with terror. I can feel it, reaching out to me. It wants me to surrender, to let it in." Evelyn placed a steadying hand on his arm, her gaze unwavering. "Don't give in, Blackwood. We're going to find a way to stop this, I promise you." As the manor continued to twist and distort around them, the team braced themselves for the challenges ahead. Evelyn knew that they were facing a force beyond their wildest imaginings, one that would test the limits of their resolve and their ability to confront the unknown. But she was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The entity had chosen the wrong team to challenge, and she would ensure that it would come to regret its decision. The entity's power surged, transforming the once stately Shadowmere Manor into a nightmarish landscape. Rooms warped and twisted, the walls seeming to breathe as shadows danced across the surfaces. Evelyn Cross gripped the edge of the ancient desk, watching in horror as the shelves on the far wall began to shift, the books and papers sliding off as if the very laws of physics no longer applied. "We need to get out of here," Samchen said, her voice trembling. The team's tech expert had been the most skeptical of the paranormal, but even she could no longer deny the overwhelming evidence of the supernatural force at work. Lydia Raven, the medium, shook her head, her eyes glazed over. It's too late. The entity. It's here. It's all around us. Mark Winters, the cynical journalist, scoffed. This is impossible. There has to be a rational explanation. His words were cut off as the floor suddenly lurched, sending them all staggering to maintain their balance. Evelyn felt a chill run down her spine as the air seemed to grow thick with an oppressive, malevolent presence. We need to find the ritual site, Evelyn said, her voice steady despite the terror that gnawed at her. That's the only way to stop this. Victor Blackwood, the reclusive billionaire who had summoned them, approached with a haunted expression. I don't know where it is. The manor, it's changing. Nothing is as it was. Evelyn fixed him with a piercing gaze. Then we'll have to find it. This entity, whatever it is, it's trying to fully manifest in our world. We have to stop it before that happens. The team moved quickly through the shifting corridors, each step a battle against the reality-warping power of the entity. Doors slammed shut behind them, and the very walls seemed to shift and undulate, dizzying their senses. Lydia cried out, clutching her head as visions assaulted her. I see. So much death. Rituals, sacrifices. The entity, it's been here before. Feeding on the pain, the fear. She shuddered, her face pale. Sam's equipment malfunctioned, the screens flickering and digital readouts scrambling. I can't get a fix on our location. The manor, it's like it's alive and fighting us. Mark pressed on, his skepticism wavering in the face of the overwhelming supernatural evidence. We need to find that ritual site. If there's any chance of stopping this thing, that's where we need to be. Evelyn led the way, her mind racing as she pieced together the fragments of information they had gathered. The entity had been summoned centuries ago by the Blackwood family, drawn to the manor's isolation and the dark energy that permeated the place. And now, with the last of the Blackwoods under its sway, it sought to fully cross over into the physical world. As they navigated the shifting corridors, Evelyn couldn't help but be reminded of her own past encounters with the supernatural. The trauma she had endured had shaped her, driving her to dedicate her life to understanding and confronting such forces. But now, facing the sheer power of this ancient entity, she felt a spark of fear ignite within her. The team rounded a corner, only to find their path blocked by a gaping chasm. The floor had simply vanished, leaving a yawning abyss that seemed to stretch endlessly downward. We'll have to find another way, Evelyn said, her mind already searching for an alternative route. But as they turned to retrace their steps, the passage behind them had disappeared, leaving them trapped. The walls began to close in, the ceiling lowering, as if the manor itself sought to crush them. Lydia cried out, her eyes wide with terror. It knows we're coming. It's trying to stop us. Evelyn's heart raced, but she refused to give in to the panic. We have to keep moving. There has to be a way through this. She scanned the area, looking for any clue, any weakness in the entity's hold on the manor. Her gaze fell upon a shadowy alcove, barely visible in the shifting, distorted light. Squinting, she could make out the faint outline of a doorway. There! She called out, pointing. That way. Quickly! The team surged forward, dodging falling debris and narrowly avoiding being crushed as the walls continued their relentless advance. Evelyn led the way, her determination fueling her steps even as she felt her own fears threatening to overwhelm her. As they reached the shadowy alcove, Evelyn paused, her hand on the ancient, ornate doorknob. This is it. Whatever lies beyond, we have to be ready. Taking a deep breath, she twisted the knob and pushed the door open, stepping into the unknown. The room beyond was a stark contrast to the nightmare they had just escaped. The walls were lined with ancient tomes and occult artifacts, casting an eerie glow upon the chamber. In the center stood a large, ornate altar, its surface covered in intricate symbols and sigils. This must be it, Sam breathed, her eyes wide with reverence and trepidation. The ritual site. Lydia shuddered, her gaze fixed on the altar. I can feel it. The entity, it's drawing power from this place. Evelyn turned to Victor Blackwood, who stood beside her, his face etched with a mixture of dread and resignation. Tell us what you know. How do we stop this thing? Blackwood's shoulders sagged, the weight of his family's legacy clearly weighing heavily upon him. The ritual. It requires specific components, ancient artifacts to channel the power needed to banish the entity. But they're scattered throughout the manor, hidden in places only my ancestors would have known. Mark stepped forward, his voice tinged with frustration. So we're supposed to just wander around this nightmare, searching for some magic trinkets while that thing gets stronger? Evelyn placed a hand on Mark's arm, her gaze steady. We don't have a choice. If we don't stop the entity here, it will break free and consume everything in its path. She turned to the rest of the team, her expression resolute. We need to split up and search the manor. Time is running out. Whatever it takes, we have to find those artifacts and complete the ritual before the entity fully manifests. The team exchanged a series of determined nods, their fears momentarily pushed aside by the gravity of their mission. Evelyn knew the risks, the very real possibility that none of them might make it out alive. But she also knew that this was their only chance to stop the ancient evil from spreading its darkness across the world. With a final, steadying breath, Evelyn led the way back into the shifting, nightmarish corridors of Shadowmere Manor, her team at her side, united in their determination to confront the most terrifying adversary any of them had ever faced. The entity's power surged, warping the very fabric of reality within the confines of Shadowmere Manor. Rooms shifted and merged, as floors seemed to stretch and twist in impossible geometries. Shadows lengthened, engulfing the hallways and corridors, breathing an ominous presence into the air. Evelyn Cross gripped the ancient tome tightly, her eyes scanning the faded pages for the next step in the ritual. We need to get to the ritual site, she said, her voice betraying a hint of desperation. The entity is close to fully manifesting. We're running out of time. Sam Chun, the team's tech expert, grimaced as her equipment flickered and malfunctioned, unable to maintain a stable connection. The power fluctuations are making it impossible to get a clear read on our location. This place is like a labyrinth. Then we'll have to navigate it the old-fashioned way. Lydia Raven said, her eyes narrowed in concentration. The medium had grown increasingly sensitive to the entity's presence, her connection to the spirit world amplifying with every passing moment. I can feel its pull. It's trying to draw us in, to consume us. Mark Winters, the cynical journalist who had initially dismissed the team's mission, now found himself gripped by a sense of dread he could no longer ignore. This goes beyond anything I've ever encountered, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. We're in over our heads. Victor Blackwood stood apart from the group, his face etched with a mixture of fear and resignation. I should have never made that pact, he murmured, his hands trembling. The entity. It's going to use me to cross over completely. Evelyn's gaze met Blackwood's, her expression hardening. We won't let that happen, she vowed. But we need your help to stop this. You're the key to unraveling the entity's hold on this place. Blackwood hesitated, the weight of his family's legacy visibly burdening him. I don't know if I can. The power it offers, the temptation to control it. He shook his head, his eyes pleading for understanding. I'm not sure I have the strength to resist. Then find it, Evelyn said, her voice firm. For the sake of all of us, and everything we're fighting for. With a newfound determination, the team set out to navigate the shifting labyrinth of Shadowmere Manor, each member facing their own inner demons as the entity's influence grew stronger. Sam's rational mind was repeatedly tested as her instruments failed, forcing her to rely on her instincts and the guidance of her teammates. The tech expert found herself grappling with the realization that not everything could be explained through science and logic. Lydia, the sensitive medium, struggled to maintain her focus as the entity's dark energy pulsed all around them. Whispers echoed in her mind, taunting her with visions of the past and the promise of power. She had to draw on every ounce of her spiritual discipline to keep the entity's influence at bay. Mark, the once skeptical journalist, found himself increasingly haunted by the tangible horrors they faced. His notebook, once a tool for documenting their investigation, had become a source of comfort, a means to ground himself in the reality he understood. As they pressed forward, the team encountered a series of supernatural obstacles, each one more daunting than the last. Doors slammed shut of their own accord, trapping them in claustrophobic corridors. Paintings swirled with ethereal images, tormenting them with glimpses of the entity's true form. Floors threatened to give way, plunging them into the abyss below. Throughout it all, Evelyn remained a steadfast leader, her determination fueling the team's resolve. She drew from her own traumatic past, using the pain and fear she had once experienced to fortify her spirit. With each challenge they overcame, Evelyn grew stronger, her connection to the supernatural realm deepening. Victor Blackwood, torn between his desire for power and his growing horror at the entity's intentions, became an unpredictable wild card. At times, he would provide crucial information or assistance, only to be consumed by the entity's whispers, nearly betraying the team. In a particularly harrowing encounter, the entity manifested twisted, shadowy figures that attacked the team, their clawed hands reaching for their throats. Lydia's powers flared, and she was able to repel the entities, but the strain on her mind was evident. "I can't hold them off much longer," Lydia gasped, her face pale with exertion. "The entity. It's trying to break through." Evelyn knew they had to push on, to reach the ritual site before the entity's full power was unleashed. "We're almost there," she said, her voice laced with determination. "Stay with me, all of you. We're going to end this." The team pressed forward, navigating the nightmarish landscape of the warped manor. Rooms shifted and distorted, stairways leading to impossible heights, and the air itself seemed to thicken with a palpable sense of dread. As they neared the ritual site, the entity's power surged, and the very foundations of the manor began to tremble. Blackwood stumbled, his eyes wide with fear. "It's too late," he cried. "The entity is going to consume us all." Evelyn grabbed Blackwood by the shoulders, her gaze unwavering. "Not if we stop it first," she said, her voice steel. "You have to help us, Victor. This is your chance to redeem yourself, to break the cycle of your family's legacy." Blackwood hesitated, his internal conflict raging. But in that moment, something shifted within him. The weight of his guilt, the fear of the entity's power, it all seemed to melt away, replaced by a newfound resolve. "Tell me what to do," Blackwood said, his voice steadier than it had been in years. With Blackwood's renewed commitment, the team reached the ritual site, a vast chamber at the heart of the manor. Evelyn quickly began to set up the intricate components, her team members assisting with their respective areas of expertise. As the ritual commenced, the entity's power surged, the very air crackling with its malevolent energy. Shadows lashed out, trying to disrupt the proceedings, but the team worked in perfect harmony, their determination fueling their actions. Evelyn's heart pounded in her chest as she chanted the ancient words, her focus unwavering. She could feel the entity's resistance, its desperation to break free and consume the world. But she refused to falter, her own traumatic past giving her the strength to confront this ancient evil. In a climactic moment, the ritual reached its crescendo, and Evelyn realized the terrible truth. The only way to stop the entity's advance was through a sacrificial act. She knew what she had to do. "Get out of here, all of you," Evelyn commanded, her voice trembling with emotion. "I'll hold it off, but you need to escape before the manor collapses." Her team members protested, unwilling to leave her behind, but Evelyn's resolve was unbreakable. With a final, defiant glare at the entity, she stepped forward, offering herself as the vessel to bind the malevolent force once more. The manor shook with the intensity of the ritual, and the team barely managed to escape as the ancient structure began to crumble around them. Evelyn's sacrifice echoed in their minds, their hearts heavy with the weight of her choice. As they emerged from the collapsing manor, the team watched in stunned silence as Shadowmere Manor was consumed by the earth, swallowed by the darkness it had harbored for centuries. And in that moment, they knew that Evelyn's story was far from over, for the entity's lingering presence promised a new chapter, one in which they would have to confront the impossible, to save the one who had saved them all. The manor shook violently as the entity's power surged, collapsing entire wings of the crumbling estate. Evelyn Cross gripped the edge of the ritual circle, her knuckles white with the strain. Around her, the team scrambled to maintain their fragile hold on the magical forces they had unleashed. "We have to finish the ritual!" Evelyn shouted over the deafening roar of twisting metal and shattering stone. "Sam, keep the circle stable! Lydia, channel your energy into the focal point!" Sam's fingers flew across her tablet, brow furrowed in intense concentration as she poured her analytical prowess into stabilizing the complex ritual. Lydia, her eyes closed in a trance-like state, extended her trembling hands towards the pulsing, otherworldly artifact at the center of the circle. Mark Winters crouched behind an upturned table, his camera recording the unfolding chaos. "This is madness," he muttered, his voice tinged with a mix of fear and fascination. "How the hell did we end up here?" Victor Blackwood stood apart from the group, his expression one of anguished resignation. "It's too late," he said, his voice barely audible above the din. "The entity. It's too powerful. We can't stop it." Evelyn whirled to face him, her gaze fierce and unwavering. "We have to try, Blackwood. For all our sakes." She turned back to the others, her tone brooking no argument. "Keep going! I'll buy us more time." Without hesitation, Evelyn charged towards the epicenter of the ritual, where the entity's manifestation had taken on a towering, nightmarish form. The air crackled with an otherworldly energy as she approached, her senses heightened by the sheer intensity of the supernatural forces at play. Evelyn drew a deep breath, summoning every ounce of her courage and determination. "You will not win," she declared, her voice echoing with conviction. "This ends here." The entity's hollow, echoing laughter reverberated through the collapsing manor. "Foolish mortal!" it boomed, its spectral form shifting and contorting. "Your pitiful efforts cannot stop what has been set in motion. I will consume this world, and you will be the first to fall." Evelyn braced herself as the entity lashed out, tendrils of shadowy energy swarming towards her. She met the assault with a flurry of expertly timed incantations, her rational mind and intuitive understanding of the paranormal working in perfect harmony. The team watched in a mixture of awe and terror as Evelyn deftly countered the entity's attacks, buying them the precious time they needed to complete the ritual. But the strain was evident on her face, and they knew she could not hold out much longer. Lydia's eyes snapped open, her expression one of pure terror. "Evelyn, it's too strong! We have to stop now, before it's too late." Evelyn spared a brief glance towards her team, her gaze filled with a silent plea. "Keep going," she mouthed, before turning her full attention back to the entity. The team hesitated, torn between their desire to help their leader and the need to finish the ritual. Sam's fingers trembled as she continued to work, while Mark watched, transfixed by the unfolding spectacle. Blackwood stepped forward, his expression hardening with resolve. "I'll help her," he said, his voice surprisingly steady. "You all need to complete the ritual. I owe it to my family to end this." Before anyone could protest, Blackwood rushed to Evelyn's side, joining the fray against the entity. His own intimate knowledge of the dark forces at play gave him an edge, and together, they fought with a desperate ferocity. The team watched, their hearts pounding, as Blackwood and Evelyn battled the entity with everything they had. Sam and Lydia redoubled their efforts, pouring their remaining strength into the ritual, while Mark documented the harrowing scene, his initial skepticism long since shattered. The entity's power grew, its tendrils lashing out with increasing intensity. Evelyn and Blackwood were slowly being overwhelmed, their movements growing more erratic and desperate. "We're almost there," Sam shouted, her voice strained. "Just hold on a little longer." Evelyn risked a glance towards the team, her eyes reflecting a grim realization. In that moment, she knew what she had to do. With a final, defiant cry, Evelyn broke away from Blackwood's side and charged towards the pulsing focal point of the ritual. The entity, sensing her intent, surged forward, its gaping maw opening wide to consume her. "Evelyn, no!" Lydia's anguished scream pierced the chaos, but Evelyn was already lost to the entity's grasp. In a blinding flash of light and an ear-shattering roar, Evelyn plunged the ritual artifact into the entity's core. The entity's form convulsed, its power lashing out in a final, devastating torrent. The manor began to collapse in earnest, the very foundations shaking under the strain of the supernatural forces. Sam, Lydia, Mark, and Blackwood scrambled to escape the crumbling structure, their terror fueling their desperate flight. As they stumbled out into the night, the manor imploded behind them, the ancient estate reduced to rubble. Evelyn was nowhere to be seen, her sacrifice seeming to have banished the entity once more. In the aftermath, the team huddled together, bruised and shaken, their minds reeling from the traumatic events they had endured. Lydia wept openly, while Sam and Mark stared at the smoking ruins, their expressions haunted. Blackwood stood apart, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "She's gone," he murmured, his voice tinged with a mixture of guilt and reverence. "Evelyn. She saved us all." Months passed, but the team could not escape the weight of their ordeal. They went their separate ways, each struggling to come to terms with the loss of their leader and closest friend. Then, one day, a cryptic message arrived, delivered by an anonymous source. Within the envelope was a single, faded Polaroid photograph, an image of Evelyn, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination, as if she was reaching out from beyond the veil. The team gathered once more, united by a newfound purpose, to uncover the truth and rescue Evelyn from the limbo between worlds. For if she had sacrificed herself to save them, they owed her the chance to be free. The entity's power may have been bound, but its influence lingered, a constant reminder that the battle was far from over. As the team embarked on their next mission, they knew that the real test of their resolve was yet to come. Thank you for joining us on this chilling journey through the story of Dr. Evelyn Cross and Shadowmere Manor. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, like, and push the bell icon for more spine-tingling tales. And please share this video with your friends to spread the mystery and suspense. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.